with you can use the chat box, and you can as well raise your hand. I'll ask you to unmute yourself and speak. So we are awaiting a speaker for today.
Okay, can we also talk about our key moment from the second session?
But I would like us to do that when we're about to start the second session.
Okay.
So by the way, our speaker for today is around, so we are starting any moment from now. So let's get our pens ready, your daughter, and then yourself. Yeah, Cynthia said it was an eye opener. Yeah, really, because I realized the fact that you have to put yourself out there for them to know that you're actually worthy of being invested in. Was actually the best ways to start our head start. So very soon we are going to be having a video of the profile of our speaker for today. Okay, if you are just joining us, a very warm welcome to you. This is the second day of the Head Start by Lera Sports Company. And today we are going to be having two sessions just like we did yesterday. The first session will start any moment from now, and it's going to be facilitated by Dr. Olusola Owonikoko. And we are going to have a video of his profile being shown any moment from now or so. And please get your pen and your jotter ready so that you could document as much as possible from the value that will be dispensed this evening. Okay, we're sorry for keeping you waiting. And if you not share the link to WhatsApp, can you please do that so that we can have many more attendees? Okay, so without much ado, since we are not able to have the profile of the speaker for tonight ready, we seem to be having a technical issue. So I'll just introduce our speaker so that we can have the session set out right now. All right, leaders. So I'd like us to show some excitement in the chat box. you are really ready for tonight, please show some excitement in the chat box to show that we are ready for our speaker tonight. And a gentle reminder that we're going to be learning on mentorship in excellence. And we're going to be taught extensively tonight by Mr. Olusola Owonikoko, the Executive Director of Stanford Edge. All right, let's show more excitement. If you are really happy to be here, if you are eager, if you are anticipating value to dispense, just like we had yesterday, it only gets better. So let me see some excitement. If you are here, come to the chat box. Thank you, Funaya. Thank you, Olamide. So right about now, we're going to be welcoming Mr. Olusola as the session starts proper. You have the floor now, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Properly, sir.
Oh, great. Great. Can I share my screen? Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me this evening. I am really, really excited to be here. And I think it's a very wonderful opportunity we have to learn from one another, because I'm also here to learn as much as I can. So I can't share my screen yet. You would have to enable me before I can do that. Please let me know when that is done so I can share my screen.
Okay, we'll do that, sir. I think you can share it now, sir. You made the host.
Okay, fantastic. Just a minute. Okay. Let me know when you can see this slide, the presentation. Okay, great. So once again, thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about mentorship, which is something I've spoken about a lot in the last 3 years, so much so that I had to write a book about it. Not because I planned to write a book, but because I felt it was really something that was important. Though I've spoken mostly about intergenerational mentorship, which I'll touch on today a little bit. But then what I've done is to also put together the content and share my own story, my own stories with different mentors. Hopefully the book should be out in a couple of weeks. But this evening we are talking about the place of mentorship in excellence. And I think that is really, really important for us as young people because the journey is far, like I would say. There's a lot to be done. There's a lot of distractions. But for me, why mentorship was really important was because I found out that I could do a lot of things. I could talk, I could, work in the corporate sector, nonprofit sector. I could do a lot of things. And mentorship even becomes more important, especially if you are multi-talented, like many of us are. I think many young people in this age have a lot of talent. And it can become a burden. It can become a burden, what to do, what to focus on in a very, very tough environment like Nigeria is. I think it can be a challenge. And that is why it's always very helpful to have the advantage of someone who has gone ahead, a bit ahead. And sometimes it is not even someone who has gone ahead. It can even be our peers, our friends, or maybe even someone younger, but someone who has invested time to learn about a particular subject or a particular area of life. It's usually very helpful to have such person guide and provide support for us. So today, I am going to talk about, my own mentorship story. Well, maybe stories, but I'll probably just pick one. What makes mentorship works? And basically, I just want to share from my own experience mentoring others, being a protege or a mentee to other people, and then talk about roles, right? Well, what exactly the role of mentor and the mentee? And of course, we are going to talk about structure because I believe so much in building systems that make things work so that things can be almost automated. And I think when we have the right structure in place, it's easy for mentorship relationship to function. So we'll do all of these within 30, 40 minutes. Perhaps we can use the remaining 20 minutes to take questions and talk real life scenarios with people, if time and if the structure of this meeting permits that we do that, right? So I think mentorship is a missing link. So you go to school, you learn all of these things, and then just after school, you're expected to apply, right? All of what you have learned, be it in the academic sector or in your own personal life. I remember the first time, so most of my growing up days, well, a good part of it, I was at the boarding house hostel. But then I came back home as a day student. I'm talking of primary, secondary school student. And all of a sudden I was in the uni. And for the first time, my parents would send me money to run my life in school. But nobody actually taught me how to spend money. I don't know if you have that kind of feeling. You know, I would put, and if you have comments or, you know, feedback at any point, feel free to put it in the chat box. I wish I could see your faces right now. It would be a lot easier, but I'll do my best here. So I was talking about the fact that I got to school and lo and behold, I was sent money, pocket money. And I remember in those early days, I'll just put it to my pocket and go around. When I see things I want to buy, I buy. And, you know, one day you put your hand in your pocket and the money is gone. You know, it took me a lot of learning process, especially in my first few months or years in school, to understand the place of budgeting, because nobody ever told me about it, right? Even though I had a sense that, okay, you should do some level of planning, but it wasn't enough. It was necessary that I should have been sat to be taught a few things, right? I'd done business study, perhaps we've learned about some of these things, but were those things applied in my life? No, not necessarily. And that was because there was a missing link, right? Very, very important. Look at, you know, the way many of us young people live our lives today. Not necessarily that something is wrong, but I am of the opinion that many of us are living exactly the way our parents live in their own time, just the 21st century version of it. And we are basically going to repeat all the mistakes, all the things they did, right? And that's because perhaps nobody is actively telling us that you don't have to do things this way. You can cut this journey of 4 years down to 4 months by being strategic in a number of things. And I would always be grateful for the opportunity that I had in school. And shortly, I'll tell you, I think one of the most significant experiences with people, with mentors that I have had in my own life. But just before that, I also wanted to quickly establish that mentorship can be in any direction, because basically mentorship is really somebody showing us the way, guiding us, right? Simply put, showing you the way, how things can be better done or how things can be best done for us to maximize our resources. And you know, the most important of those resources, not even money, it's our time, our energy, right? Because you don't want to spend 5, 10 years just doing the same thing, beating around the bush, only for you to realize that what you've spent the last 10 years trying to achieve, or what you've spent the last 10 years trying not to achieve, could have been done with just one understanding. Somebody said that there are several ways you can learn. You can learn from your own experience. You can also learn from people teaching you, showing you the way forward. But the question is, do you have enough time in your life to learn all the experiences, all the things you want to learn from your own experience? The answer will be no, because the point is, at the time you are done learning all of these things, then you probably do not have enough time anymore, right? So it's important that we are careful to learn from what others have gone through so that we can maximize our own resources. One of the biggest findings of people, especially in the sports, the most successful people in sports globally are those who started really early. And Of those who started really early, the most successful of them are those whose parents help them identify their strengths early enough and quickly put them in that direction. Look at people like Tiger Woods, who is arguably one of the most successful sportsmen ever. People like Serena Williams, right? And those are people in the sports that many of us know, who started what they were doing at the age of 4. Their life wasn't for experiments. Somebody predetermined what they were good at or knew what they were good at and set them on that path. If our lives, you and I, if our lives were like that, trust me, at this time, we would already have recorded phenomenal success, because it's an open rule that for you to be an expert, a real expert in whatever you do, you must have dedicated 10,000 hours to it. The challenge, however, is many of us don't even know what we should be doing, not to talk of now practicing sufficiently for us to become experts in whatever we do. And that is where mentorship comes in, for us to quickly, as early as possible, determine the course of our lives, determine how best to achieve those, and not victimize ourselves of our mistake. Because sometimes, and I think some of the best mentorship experience I've gotten is learning from mentors that my mistakes shouldn't stop me, because mistakes, errors are part of life, right? As a matter of fact, they are part of the design of life, right? And sometimes the mentorship experience you would have is not just somebody telling you how best to do things, it's someone telling you that whatever you think would not position you for success might actually be converted to a stepping stone for whatever you want to do, or might just be pointing to very important things in your life which you are not paying attention to because you don't know, right? So mentorship can be in any direction, and it's important we know this so that we can open up our mind, right? And know that the person you call your friends might know something, might have invested their time, resources, and energy in something and know that thing well, and they can transfer that skill to you if you would acknowledge that they can mentor you, right? So it's not so much of age dynamics, and that's what I want to deconstruct first of all. Of course, the traditional mentorship relationship is somebody who is much older coming to tell you what to do, and that is fine. That happens all the time. But it can even be somebody who is younger or who is age mate with you. But what is more important is the fact that you are open to learning, to developing, to maximizing the resources that you have. And that is very important. So I'll tell you about my own story. I was just getting into my first year in school when I came across a mentor. I can tell you his name. He's not someone who you probably know. His name is Akinola Babatunde. And the interesting thing is I did not choose him. I didn't choose him. He chose me. And in my own opinion, the most effective mentorship relationships are the ones where the mentors choose the mentee. However, if no mentor is choosing you for now, nothing stops you from approaching someone to mentor you. Right? I'll show you how to get things done. Excuse me. So I remember that I was just getting into school. I had so many passion and interests. I wanted to be this, I wanted to be that, I wanted to get this done. And I was also dealing with self-identity issue, which many young people deal with. Nothing wrong with that, right? It's part of an important phase that we all must go through in our lives to truly understand and become who we should be, right? And I remember he calling me and telling me that, would I like to join the circle of friends? The first interview I did was with this man. The first opportunity I have to even learn outside of the immediate environment I have with school or church, for those of us who are Christians, or family setting was in. But he modeled excellence so much that it became something I wanted, I desire, right? It became something I wanted to be or to do or to be a part of, right? And that's also leading me to say that effective mentorship usually give us an opening into our mentors' lives, such that we are able to learn more by what we observe and not just by what we are told. And it's fine when mentors come to tell us, do this and do that and get this done. But I think it's even more impactful when we are able to see into the lives of our mentors and see what they are doing, because the secret to every person's success story or even failure is in their story, right? And if we are not privy to seeing that story, then we would not learn the way we should learn. And I think that's very important for us to note and understand. From how to dress, to social etiquette, to business etiquette, to public speaking, to business management, starting a business and all. These were things that this man's life taught me. Just because I had an opportunity of someone who has gone ahead. And interestingly, he was just about 5 years older than I was. As a matter of fact, he was just completing his NYC when I was getting into school. But sometimes what young people need is just an inspiration, somebody who is able to tell the difference between the stage we are now and show us a glimpse of hope that whatever we are going through is not permanent, or whatever challenges we are having in business or career, they have once had. And I think that is where the authenticity of mentorship comes from. So on that note, I'm going to talk. Excuse me, please. Sorry, I have a bit of cold. I hope you understand. Sorry. I'm going to talk quickly about 4 things that I think are important for every mentorship relationship. The first one is the right match. And I don't want you to get this confused by saying that there's a perfect mentorship match for you. But before you can understand this concept of right match, you must be able to get to a point where you are able to analyze your life and ask yourself, what exactly do I need to get to the next point that I need to get to, right? If you are a financial expert and you are training to become, you're a finance person, you want to become a financial expert, the best mentor for you sometimes might not necessarily be a financial expert. It might be somebody who is in a similar, a different but related field, who is able to bring that component you are missing in your own career to you. And that is very important. So the question you want to ask yourself, if you are going to go through an impactful mentorship relationship, is to first of all ask yourself, what do I need at this phase of my life? And how do I know who has that thing such that they can help me? And that's very crucial, right? Very, very important that we understand the place of finding the gaps in our own lives, finding the gaps in our own career, finding the gaps in our own journey and looking to fill it. Otherwise, you have people who are not necessarily helping you to answer the questions that you have, who are not providing the answers to the question you have. And then the friction happens because, again, when you are not adding value to one another, then there are bound to be redundancy or issues and challenges. And I think that is very important. The second very important point why I think mentorship would work or not work is authenticity. And it's from both sides, but I think it's even more important on the part of the mentor. When I find mentors for any area of my life, I'm basically looking for people who can be authentic, who can be real, who can be vulnerable to me. People talk about vulnerability as a disadvantage, but I think it's a strength if we know how to use it. Because as humans, we are bound to be vulnerable. There are things that would not work perfectly or they would be the way we want them to be. But it is very essential that we get to a point where we understand that weaknesses are part of our humanity. And they don't always have to play to our disadvantage, right? Especially in a mentorship relationship. It's not just important that as a mentor or as you share success story or as a protege, you expect only success story. You must understand, or we all must understand, that the journey of every man's life is that of ups and downs. There will be times where things are not working. And in my opinion, I think we tend to draw more strength from times when things may not be working or when things are not working than when things seem to be working. Because the sensitivity to learning, or the brokenness for us to learn, it's highest when things are not working, when we seem to be failing. And that is what I expect sometimes, or even most times, from those who I consider to be mentor. The capacity for them to show me what is broken in the system, the capacity for them to show me where they have failed and how I can avoid it, and our own vulnerability, embracing vulnerability enough to talk to others. What is not working in our life, where we need help, where we need some guide, and where we need to get things done, right? One of the things I've learned is if you're really going to make anything out of life, then we have to forgo the primary ego that we all have, or the wish to be seen as perfect or as having everything together, right? Because everything is never together. It only appears to be together, and would maximize our lives or our situation best when we are open, vulnerable, and ready to learn, broken enough to learn, because if we are not broken, we cannot learn. And that is very, very important. I remember in my third year in the university, and to be honest, I was tired of school then. I was studying microbiology, and it suddenly dawned on me that what I was learning didn't really have any application to my environment, because I tend to be very practical. And here was I learning about microorganisms and calling very, very interesting names of things I'd never seen before, or that I may never see or even understand. So I got really discouraged from my 200 level and started to explore other things, and my grades started to drop. But thankfully, I had a level advisor then. Eventually left school just after when we got to 400 level, but it was the right match for me then, because I was lost. I needed something more to bring me back. And just from sharing my story and experience with this man who was approachable, he understood what I was going through, but he did not try to advise me of anything. He just told me that when it was time for our 300 level seminar, so there was this seminar we usually do in 300 level. It was like a mini project, but it wasn't the final year thesis, where you do a research and then you come and present it. You're not really required to do something in depth. It was just a precursor to the project. To be honest, if I had not met this man, that seminar would have been a mess for me, because I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. But he called me and then he gave me a very important topic: the role of microbiologists in achieving President Musa Yar'Adua's 7-point agenda. In researching that topic and writing about it, my career was formed, in essence, right? I learned about the MDGs, wrote about each of the MDGs and their interaction with being a microbiologist. And for the first time, I found practicality for what I'd studied for almost 4 years without understanding its relevance to my life. That is the power of a mentor. There's no way I would have done that by myself. And if you had asked me to choose a mentor to help me at that point, I didn't even have the capacity to choose the right mentor. And that was why I mentioned that, in my opinion, I think when mentors find mentees, it produces the best results. But then it can be abused too. That's a story for another time. So that particular story sets the direction of my career, is the foundation of what I do today as an international development practitioner, and it has opened a lot of doors for me. That is just an example of somebody who was authentic enough to let me realize that when he was at my own stage, he faced the same challenges, and because there was no guide, he fumbled. So because of his own failure, he was able to guide me to success and help me avoid such sense of purposelessness that I have at that point. Moving on quickly, another important point for a mentorship relationship to be valuable, to produce results, to produce excellent growth for us, is that it must be value driven. I've been in a mentorship relationship where I had nothing much to offer, and that was fine. But I've learned that it's easier for you to find the right mentors and for them to stay true to you when you in return have value to add to them. It's a different ballgame when you're just starting your career, and that's at that point it's best when you're chosen by a mentor, because then the mentor has nothing in expectation. But generally in life, we must understand that life is about value exchange, and where there is no real exchange of value, that relationship cannot truly last. So when I want people to mentor me right now at this point in my career, when I find the right person and I think this is the right match and this person has one or two things I can learn, the next thing is I ask myself, what value can I add to this person? Because Usually your mentors will probably be busy or will have their own lives or will be running after another mentor. Because as you are running after them to mentor you, they are probably running after others to mentor them. And one of the most dangerous things to do is to be mentored by somebody who is not mentored. Because then you're being mentored by perhaps a car that is not moving, right? That is the implication, but let's leave that for now. You have to be a person of value if you want to get value. If I want to learn about a new industry right now, I will find the industry leader or whoever I think is best and think of what I can give to that person, what I can add to that person. And at that point, the person doesn't necessarily see me as a parasite, somebody who is just there to get and take and learn, but I am seen as somebody who can add to them while they add to me. And I think this is very crucial if you're ever going to get the best or maximize any relationship opportunities that you have. You have to find a way to give back to them, right? So it's essential, it's important, it's critical. Because if you do not give back to them, sometimes you might fall into the trap of not appreciating what you get from them. So it is very, very important. Not just to find the right match, not just to be authentic, open, and vulnerable. It's equally important that we let value drive the relationship, that the relationship is driven by what you can give to them, not just what you can get. That is key. Structure is also key because I have been a victim of a mentoring relationship, and I'm talking of myself as a mentor of people where we suddenly come to a point where we are not sure what next we should do or why we are even doing what we are doing. So structure is important to put system in place for both parties to continually know why we are doing what we are doing. At what point should we stop doing what we are doing in this relationship? And at what point should strategy change? How do we measure or evaluate the progress? And I say that also knowing that sometimes mentorship relationships are so informal that structures are not put in place. They just happen organically. That is fantastic, right? But for many of the mentorship relationships that you would need to deliberately create the process or start it, right? So when we are much younger, sometimes mentorship can be organic and informal, and that is fine. But it gets to a point where you are talking to somebody that this is the gap I have, and I need you to support me in this. At those moments, when you are kickstarting it or when there's a deliberate beginning, then it's also important that we put structure to it. So speaking of structure, I identified about 5 things which I think are important for mentorship relationships to work. And I think the first one is for both parties to understand what exactly are we trying to achieve in this mentorship relationship, right? Because as much as you think you're the only one trying to get something out of a mentorship relationship, your mentor too might have something, and in most cases, they should have something they are trying to get out of it. It might just be a sense of giving back to the society. It might be a sense of helping younger generation grow. It might be learning something else in return. And as a matter of fact, some mentors practice reverse mentorship where they give you the power, because mentorship in itself is a power play. Somebody is powerful in an area, the other person is not as powerful, and then there's an exchange of power, right? It could be intellectual power or whatever kind of things you're exchanging. And reverse mentorship is when you allow the other person who is supposed to be the one learning to guide and lead the learning process, and then you appear to be the one learning. Meanwhile, you are just getting a ground or a better opportunity into the person's life or career so that you can see what is truly wrong. Because sometimes many of us don't even know what is wrong or what is not working. And it is in the place of being open, vulnerable, or even attempting to train or teach our mentors that our lives become open, and then we can build that true mentorship relationship. And I think that is key. So it's important that we set the goals, the target, the objective. And sometimes the objective includes the time, right? For how long do we want this to be done? And it doesn't mean that the mentorship relationship will stop after that set goal. It might just mean that the active part of it comes to an end and nobody is offended or this meeting schedule is reduced, but there has to be goals that are clearly written for yourself, sometimes for the mentor, for both of you, so that you can know when you have achieved what you should achieve, when you should seek another mentor for another area of your life or step up or, whatever it is you have to do. And of course, there has to be tools to support the process, because mentorship processes are learning process where we come to get knowledge or to share knowledge, right? So there has to be tools that are allowing us to do that, especially in this age where a lot of things are done virtually. What platform are you using, right? Do you have tools to track down what you're doing, right? Is there a place where you note what you have learned or what you've been told, or what are you going to try out? How do you come back with feedback from what you've learned previously? How do you manage the entire process, right? And tools don't have to be sophisticated. It can be as simple as we meet on WhatsApp and WhatsApp becomes a platform. It can be as simple as there's a Google Drive document where we note how we have made what we have learned, right? Where you journal your learning process. I think one of the biggest disservice you can do is when you gain a new status without learning how you get there, because it becomes really important. It becomes really difficult for you to pass it on to other people. And at that, we do not exhibit the trait of a learning person. I think it's very important that we are learning people. And part of learning is understand how that learning comes to be. And that is why documentation and mentorship is important, so that it's easy for us to know exactly what we do to achieve what result and how to carry it forward. That is key. And of course, commit to regular contact. It's important that we meet. It's important that there is a contact point. And I know a lot of people say they have been mentored via books or people that are written. Why that also might be considered mentorship, but I think there's a deeper form of mentorship where you truly are able to share stories and interact with people and learn even from what they are not saying, but just by their way of life or their strategic moves in their career, academics, profession, and so on and so forth, right? So we have to define the contact point. Where do we meet? How often do we meet? For how long do we meet? How long is this going to last for? And of course, that comes closely with tracking the goals. This is what I wanted to achieve. This is the beginning of the year, for example. Perhaps you've identified key areas of your life you would like to improve, and you've thought, okay, you're going to find somebody to help you, to guide you through that learning process. It's important that as you go through that, as you improve, you also track what you're improving, how things are getting better. And lastly, there has to be closure, right? There has to be closure, because I think from my experience, expired mentorship relationships that have not been closed can easily lead to abuse, especially when it's cross-gender, right? And I'm saying this with a sense of responsibility, because I'm also conscious of the need to ensure that nobody is abused, which tends to happen sometimes. And it doesn't have to be physical, it could be emotional, it could be words, right? So there has to be closure, right? And closure doesn't mean you end the relationship. It only means that, like I mentioned before, the period of active mentorship has come to an end, and then you can transition to newer levels of the relationship. I think that is important. Excuse me. So moving on. Talking about the mentee's role, I think it's very important that there's commitment, because I don't think anybody should seek to be mentored if they haven't come to a point where they have identified the need for it. And of course, if there's in few cases, you're chosen by your mentor, like I was, but then that's met a desire in me. And I think part of why my mentor at that point had chosen me was seeing that hunger to learn. And of course, that breed commitment, because mentorship relationship, depending on where you're trying to learn, the complexity of the relationship, it can be really tough. And in those days when I had to learn from my mentor, then there were a lot of things that were tough, because I had to unlearn a lot of things, and they didn't come easy. It affected how I spent my money, the decision I make. I was really young, so the mentorship was hands-on. if I were some other younger person, I could have said I wasn't interested again, I was leaving. But the commitment I have to him was what kept me to keep going back to learn. And sometimes your mentors are even difficult to access, right? As much as availability is important, it's also good that we know that some of the mentors we have and we seek, they are also busy and trying to do some other things. It is our commitment to them that would help us run. And of course, as a mentor, commitment is even more important for us, because once I commit to mentoring someone, then it's a commitment to be a part of their life, of their lives, or at least that part of their life they want me to support. And I, in a nutshell, assume some measure of responsibility for a part of their success, especially in that part. So commitment is important. And the best form of commitment, for sometimes the best way to show commitment is availability, just being available, being reachable, being available to answer questions, being available to respond to emails, being available to take meetings. All of those are very important. And I'm trying to talk from both sides because, like I said, as much as you are looking for someone to mentor you, there's somebody you can also mentor and lead and teach for them to grow. Don't always forget that. Because sometimes the mentoring others will learn as much as we would learn when we are being mentored. So it's not a process we should take for lightly. And of course, the appetite for knowledge, which if you are not truly seeking to learn, to not just learn, to transfer or translate theoretical learning into practical living, then we are going to change ourselves, right? So it's very, very important that we have the appetite, that we live in ourselves, we create in ourselves the appetite to learn, to get new knowledge, and to be better, to do better in everything that we are doing. And of course, accountability is key, because mentorship is about learning, it's about adding skills, building network. We must be accountable to whoever is we are mentoring or we are being mentored. And it's in two forms. If you are a mentee, being accountable is letting your mentor know how you're progressing, which area you're having problems with, or if there are areas of their own lives that you think is against what they are teaching. Why you have to be careful to say, but I think it's something that has to be addressed, because you can't say that I should be disciplined and you're telling me to do that, and you yourself, you're not expressing that. If you are really going to establish excellence, then it has to be learning by doing, right? So part of accountability is also, as a mentor, is being true to your words, being authentic, and acknowledging when the principle you are preaching, you are finding it difficult to apply, not because it's not good enough, but because it's truly tough. Emphasizing the humanity in our existence is also important, so that people don't beat themselves too hard or feel like a failure when they fail in a process, right? And that happens a lot of times. I've seen people who become suicidal because they think what their mentor is teaching them is something they must learn, and because they are not learning it, they are failed, right? So it's really, really important that as a mentee, we understand the place of commitment, the place of knowledge sharing, and for both mentees and mentors, the place of accountability is really, really essential. And of course, for mentor, availability is key. Understanding the needs to set boundaries, and I have already spoke about being open and vulnerable. But I want to spend a few moments to talk about our primary role is to facilitate learning. Sometimes the things that our protégé must learn. So what I'm trying to say is, no matter who you have, you cannot monopolize. You don't have the monopoly of influence on other people. As much as people might have submitted to you or agreed to be taught by you, sometimes the best you can do is to point them to where they can actually learn, or to use their own story to be the pointer to learning. Because people won't always take your words for it, or people won't always do it exactly as you say. But one of the most powerful things we can do is to equip the minds of our protégé to be able to learn by and in themselves. Excuse me. So that when they stop so that when the time for them, so that when they come to a point where they no longer have that interaction with you, they can keep learning. I think part of my biggest responsibility as a what's it called now, as a mentor, is to help my proteges learn how to learn. And that's the point I'm trying to make, right? Is to facilitate learning, is to, sometimes you're not even telling them anything new. You're just bringing out the reality in their own lives, bringing it out for them to learn and do better, right? So again, your role as a mentor is not really to force anybody to learn, but it's to let them see the importance of learning and point them in the direction where they can learn. Sometimes mentorship for me is finding the right books for my protege to go study and learn and come back. Sometimes it is really about hearing their own story and telling them the time from their own clock, right? And of course, the place of being available, you cannot emphasize it. I spoke about it earlier. Sending boundaries is really a function of discipline and making sure that we don't abuse the right and privileges that people have given us to their own lives. And of course, being vulnerable and accountable is an important part of the process. On this note, I think we can end and then take a few questions so that we can find a way to bring all of this closer home as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Owonikoko. It has been an awesome session. I think this session is particularly for me because I think I've been a victim of almost all the points on the mentee's role as well as the mentor's role. And I have a few questions. But leaders, please, if you have any questions, please use the chat box and you can as well unmute yourself and ask your question because we don't have much time and I know we would have many questions for this session. Use the chat box or unmute yourself to ask your question. Okay, while we are expressing the questions of the leaders, Mr. Owonikoko, I have a question from my end. And you were talking about reverse mentorship, sir. So my question is, I did not get the full concept of reverse mentorship.
Okay. I will speak to that quickly while we wait for other people who might have questions. I think someone's hand is up. So the concept of reverse mentorship is something that is particularly relevant for intergenerational mentorship, especially if you are mentoring somebody who is much younger. Say you are in the uni and you're mentoring somebody who is in primary school or secondary school or junior secondary school. Obviously, the age gap is there. The perspective to things or the perception to things also differs, right? And that tends to be a barrier. That most likely will be a barrier in the learning experience. Reverse mentorship is when you make it as though they are the mentor and you tell them, teach me something, or maybe there's something you want to learn. I've had older mentors that are full of knowledge, but when they make PowerPoint presentation, it's crazy. Everything is scattered, or they don't know how to use social media. And they come back to me to say, please come and mentor me in social media. Meanwhile, in reality, what they're asking me to do to them is not even enough for me to be called a mentor, but they are giving me the opportunity to feel powerful so that I can teach them something, right? But usually in that process, they see more of me because I tend to open up, because I feel powerful. I tend to open up, I tend to tell them more things, I tend to be more friendly. And that's a proven tactics, right? That a lot of people use. And of course, in that process, they get to teach me a lot more. When I have a sense or when I think I'm the one teaching them, and then we create an opportunity where we can truly have an exchange. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So it's just a situation where we reverse the roles in mentorship and have, instead of being a mentee, I become like the mentor. And when in reality, I'm the one learning. And of course, it's easier for us to interact. Basically, you learn more when the formal settings or the formality of that relationship reduces. And that is part of what reverse mentorship helps us to do.
Thank you very much, sir. Especially the analogy, just explains everything. So we have a couple of questions. So Precious will go first, but be as fast as possible with your question.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This was actually a very, very insightful session, because I usually feel that mentorship was like, oh, just a thing that everybody sees so you can be successful and all of those things. But I actually felt the impact. So I have two major questions. So the first one is, you mentioned how we could actually structure our mentoring relationship. So me as a mentee, when I talk to my mentor and say, okay, sir, we need to structure our mentoring relationship. We should do like this, we should do like that, we should have mentoring goals. How can I bring it forth? How can I bring up that idea to my mentor? And the second question is, in case let's say you get advances from your mentor, I don't know, how do you manage that too?
Okay, I think those are really, really practical and important questions. The first one is, how do you put structure to it when your mentor is not the one driving that? Well, of course, you want to be careful not to just come as though you're telling your mentor that he's not doing what they should be doing. What I would do is to just come with what I want to achieve from this mentorship. Go and put it out there that, sir or ma, I'm glad, thank you for the opportunity. And these are the things I'm looking to achieve, 1, 2, 3. And I'm hoping that I can get these things achieved in the next 1 year or 2 years. That will send a message. Of course, you know what you're doing. If I have a mentee who comes to me that way, I immediately know that this person knows what he's doing. And that becomes really, because I then begin to ask myself, what is my own goal out of this relationship? And then how can I help this person achieve this goal? Because it's no longer a random engagement. It's now a specific engagement. And it's easy for us to know if we have failed or not. And of course, I don't want to fail. So I become more deliberate about it. So that is what I would say. You come up with your own goal, come up with your own timeline, come up with why you want to achieve that, and let your mentor know, and let the person know that as soon as you achieve all of these things, then it would have been a successful mentorship relationship. And of course, like I mentioned, don't let it be selfish. As you do all of that, think of 1 or 2 value you can add, right? Oh, I can help you do this, or I can manage your social media account, or I can edit your PowerPoint for you, or I can, a few things that you can already do that can help. But of course, don't always do things that you're not comfortable with doing. And that leads me to the second question, because like I said, mentorship relationship, by virtue of the fact that it brings people closer, can also be abused. And you have to be sensitive to that. Whenever you sense any of it, always know that the success in your life is not in the hands of one person. Have that confidence. When you have that confidence, for sure, you will be able to walk away from any relationship. I have it. I tell myself every day, and I tell people around me, that the success you're trying to achieve in this life is not benchmark on one person. Why I think you're the best person that can help me achieve this. The day that I feel that privilege is abused, I'll be happy to walk away and find another person. There are always other people who can support you. Or the worst case scenario is a journey of 1 year. You had a few more months, but your sanity is in place. Your dignity is in place, right? So it's important that you are willing to walk away from any relationship that is becoming abusive. Do not tolerate that for any reason, right? And of course, be as respectful as you can. If somebody is throwing advances that you don't like, especially as a lady, tell them respectfully that you do not like that. If they refuse, then move on. If there's somebody that you can talk to who can help you, and I'm not saying you should go on Twitter or social media to talk about it, but there should always be maybe your parent or your elder brother or somebody respected that can help you, because these are real issues that happen every day, that I've seen and interacted to people who are victims or survivors of such abuses, and it is not good. You have no reason to subject yourself to such in the name of mentorship. Don't let your mentorship become your tormentor. Move away. There are other people who can support you.
Wow, these are very practical and explicitory.
Thank you very
answers.
much,
Thank you
sir.
so
You
much.
actually answered the question.
Thank you so much. So we have about 2 or 3 questions on the chat box, sir. So I'll do well to read one, being asked by 2 persons. The first one is that from Olusola. She said she has always been wanting to ask the question that, how do you get someone to be your mentor? What's the proper way to approach the mentor?
Okay, of course, finding mentors, like I mentioned before, should start from a place of you identifying what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes the best way to have people mentor you is not by going to tell them that you want them to be your mentor. Generally, because a lot of people come to me to ask for mentorship, it's difficult. When people ask me for mentor now, I really don't jump to it because a lot of people are asking. But I've seen people who just come to volunteer with me, who just come to say, oh, can I do this? Who just come to say, oh, this is the value I can add, or who just want to be my friend. And I've seen that through that means, I've been able to informally or subconsciously even mentor people far, far better than those who outrightly come and say, be my mentor. Because sometimes when you go and ask people, be my mentor, it suddenly puts on them the responsibility of tasks that they are not prepared for or they are not ready to do, right? So we have to be sensitive also to that. Sometimes it's just asking people to, if it's somebody you can ask for, oh, can I have 24 hours of your time this month divided over, I have a few questions. Hang out, ask questions, of course, in a safe environment. Or for some people, it can be, oh, I see you have a lot of speaking engagement. Can I help you with your slide? Send the content to me. Because as young people, we generally have more time that you can use to support people. And then they see you as being valuable, and voila, that's how it works, right? And in some cases, you can ask people outrightly, please, can you be my mentor? And I've seen people write emails to me to ask for this. I've seen people call me to ask for this. All of these are good. You just have to show that you are not going to be an extra body. Nobody wants extra body, actually. So especially for people who are older and busier and have a lot they're doing, people don't want a sense of extra work. So you have to be conscious of that and do not present yourself as somebody who is just going to take and grab and not give something in return. And it doesn't matter how a significant way you're giving a return is. It's the intention that matters, and the fact that you understand the concept of value exchange. That is what matters.
Well, thank you very much, sir. That's a very beautiful answer. So we have the very last question for tonight. But please, Ayomide Akindaosi, you can please mute your mic. You've been disturbing us. Okay, so this last question, sir, is about introverts. This person says that she has seen some people a bit introverted that choose to remain without direct physical mentors, but they choose to study the experiences of those around them, either spoken or unspoken. So they gather information from books and articles read. So what do you say about that, sir?
Come again with that question. Okay, let me just read it here. I've seen some people a bit introverted always who choose to remain without direct physical mentors, but who choose to study the experiences of those around them, either spoken or unspoken. Also, they gather. Yeah, I think it's fine, but I believe strongly that there will come a point in your life where you will need hand-holding in certain areas. And if you are not at that point yet, I mean, I'm not going to say you should force it. If it is books you find to read, yeah, read books, interact. When you read books, when I read books, there are three things I try to do. I try to have a conversation with the content of the book. I try to have a conversation with the author of the book. I try to have a conversation with myself. And it is in that process that I learn new things that transform me. So find time to interact. But when you have an opportunity to, because there's a lot of people you can learn from close interaction from people. And I don't think you should miss out of that because you're introverted. Being introverted doesn't mean you should not talk. As a matter of fact, I think we don't understand what being introverted is. We confuse being introverted with being shy. And there's really no reason for you to be timid or shy. You can overcome that and speak when you need to speak. Right? Being introverted really is more about the fact that people that are introverted, they renew their energy or they gain strength by being alone. It doesn't mean that they will be shy to talk all the time. Why people who are not introverted can be renewed, they are fine publicly, or I am introverted too, but it doesn't mean that I don't talk, right? But being shy is a different case that you have to act on and improve on, because one of the most important skills you would need to advance in life is the skill of communication. And a key part of communication is speaking out publicly, talking. You would need that very, very much. So it's a skill you have to learn. Maybe that's where you need mentorship on, perhaps. However, until you get physical access to people to learn from them, use all the means you have. However, when you have the time to, when you have the opportunity to, don't miss out on that because you are shy, because there's a lot you can learn. Life is about networking, being able to, you will learn as you advance in your career that the most critical success factor is not the technical skills, which are really important to get you started, but they are not all you need. You need a lot more of social skills, emotional intelligence, because all these skills and expertise you have, we might just be knowing one person that you can engage with that will unlock the door for you to get to the next level. So you need to practice and get a hold of that as fast as you can. So that's important.
Wow. Thank you very, very, very much, sir. That's very beautiful. So I think someone was raising their hand for a question, but before the person speaks, sir, we want to sincerely apologize for the itch we had at the beginning, the technical issues. We are so sorry. And yes, I would like to ask about the book you mentioned earlier. So how do we get access to the book, sir?
So the title of the book is Mentoring for Change. It's really about me narrating 2-3 stories and then a few things. So as soon as it's out, it will be on my website, and I'm planning to also have it on Amazon. So just if you follow me on social media, you definitely know when it's out, because I cannot even say this is the date. It should have been out December last year, but there were a few things I wanted properly done. So we decided to push it forward by another 1 or 2 months. The content is ready, everything is ready. You're just touching it up a bit. So if you follow me on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, you definitely see when it's out. And I'm making provision on my personal website for it to be sold, the Olusola.com. So, but until then, I have a lot of content on my blog that you can read. I think there are 1 or 2 articles on mentorship too. So feel free to interact with those, and I'm happy to engage. If you send me a message on any of the platform, I'm very, very available on my social media platform. I will answer your questions, and if I have time, we can also chat.
Thank you very much for that, sir. We'll do well to connect with you, sir. So I think this will bring us to the end of the session. Can we please? Oh, Precious.
Yes.
We'll be very fast with it.
Okay. Yes, sir. So how will you know if you are good enough to mentor someone? Because you mentioned the role of not only being mentored, but mentoring others. So how would you know that, oh, I'm actually good enough to mentor others, or I've reached that point where I can mentor others?
Well, I think sometimes, and I'll come back to answer your question, but I think sometimes the question is not if you're good enough to mentor others. Sometimes the question is, are you humble enough to learn from others? And because again, I see mentorship as a learning opportunity even for the mentor. And sometimes I build relationship with people because I want to learn from them, even though they might be younger career-wise or even in age, whatever it is, right? Because I want to learn from them. And in that process, I also mentor them. So how do you know when you're good enough? It's really about sharing your knowledge. What knowledge do you want to share with people? And if someone would approach you to say that, oh, I've seen that you're doing this area of your life well, can you please guide me? In this area? A lot of people approach me to say, oh, you run a non-profit, we think you're doing it well, can you guide us? And I'm happy to open up to them and say, hey, it might appear that we are running it well, but we are also facing challenges. It's just that you might not see it because we have become experts in managing our challenges and making everything look smooth. Just telling them that alone is strength, because sometimes people come to you thinking they are failing or they are not doing things well, when in reality, you are experiencing what they're experiencing. You have just mastered how to handle it well. So there are different scenarios. There are situations where you are clearly good at something and you can clearly help others. But I think the goal is being available to help other people learn what you have learned, or being available to help other people avoid the mistakes that you have been able to, that you've learned from, or that you were able to avoid in your own life. And sometimes you really do not have success to share. You just have the benefit of perception here with people and listen. Sometimes mentorship is just listening. having them talk. And in that process, you find the right answers. I think whoever you are, you should be somebody that you are actively helping to learn while you are also learning from other people. So if you are waiting for where you think you're an expert, you might never think you're one. But the general scenario, I would not say rule, because really there are no rule, is to be willing to help others learn, to help others see what you have gone through. If you're in the university, there's definitely somebody who is writing JAM, who is finding it difficult, that you can talk to, that, oh, why don't you just focus on your energy, write these things once and for all and cross it? Or, hey, during my time, I wrote this a couple of times, it was challenging, this was what helped me. Hey, during my time, JAMB wasn't what worked. I found other alternatives to the uni. And, the knowledge you have that is your own power is what others don't have and their disadvantage. Once you know that, you'll be good. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very, very, very much, sir. And we are sincerely sorry for the hold and extremely grateful for taking out your time, your energy, your resources. Thank you so much, sir, for granting our request to speak with us. We are sincerely grateful. Leaders, can we please appreciate Mr. Olusola Owonikoko? It has been an awesome session, particularly the expository answers. Thank you so much, sir. And we
Thank
do
you
well
so
to
much.
follow and anticipate your book.
Yes. Like I said, please feel free to reach out to me on any platform you find me. I'll be happy to interact. Thank you so much. Please allow me out of the
Yes,
platform
sir.
at this
Thank you
point.
so much.
All right. Have a good evening. I wish
You too, sir.
fun time in the remaining parts of the conference.
You too. Thank you so much, sir.
All
So,
right.
leaders, this brings us to the end of the first session of today. So we are having the second session of day 2 of EdStart 2022 by 7 o'clock. Starting by 7 o'clock, and we're going to be having Dr. Woshini teaching us on a survival skill in a dynamic economy. So please do well to be around even before 7 so that we can start on time and have a very beautiful session. So we can end the meeting now, so you can leave and join by 7 or before 7. See you.